All right. So we are recording and we're live. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm James Whitney. I work at the Maryland Assistive Technology Program as the assistive technology clinician on staff, one of two here, technically three. And I'm an occupational therapist as well. As a little bit of background about my education, my clinical training comes from occupational therapy. In these first few slides, just to reiterate what we do in our services, I'm going to fly through these because we want to talk about other things today. And our topic today is on autism and different devices that can help with sensory modulation and regulation and behavioral regulation, social interactions, and kind of all that good stuff, communication, etc. So about us, really briefly, for anyone who's not aware of what we do, is that we are an AT Act program. We are Maryland's program. Every state has one. And we help our clients access, or we help our state residents access assistive technology devices and services through our program for free. And we basically, in a nutshell, what I help operate is our lending library, where we can loan out devices to folks for 30-day trial runs, and better give our clients an idea of kind of what companies exist, what products are out there, how do these things work, and we allow them to borrow those things. So anything that we have physically in our space, we can loan out for 30-day trials. And assistive technology is really any device that can help someone with a functional activity. So helping somebody increase independence or success with tasks, etc. So we do help people connect with different AT devices, and that could be anything from like a cane or a walker or a wheelchair to an eye gaze system to help with speech access, to things to help you get dressed in the morning. Really anything that's adaptive or can help someone either increase success with a task or increase functional independence is considered assistive technology. So it's quite a lot of things. And I'm going to fly through a couple of these because I want to save time for what we really want to talk about today. But we can do consultations in person. And that is, here in Baltimore, or we can do virtual consultations. We can run through, like where in your daily life or your child's daily life or someone you're caring for's daily life, so where do you want to improve an activity or improve an outcome or, increase success with that task or, just overall do things a little bit safer, more independent, or more successful. So we kind of start with our goals, and then we kind of break it down into like what devices have you been using? Where have you found success? Where have you not found success? And where are the shortcomings? And what could I introduce to you to help you just better trial the options and to introduce to you that might help you, achieve that goal. So that's kind of how I frame our consultations. And then we can play around with different devices. We can try them out and loan them out to you, and you can send them back to us when you're done with that 30-day trial, and we can keep trying different things. So we have our demo and loan program I was just outlining on receiving a consultation and receiving information and chances to get trained on and use different AT devices. We also run a reuse program where folks can donate devices to us. We can clean them up and we can give those back out to people. So that is in and out donations that is facilitated, through us, and that is housed in Columbia, Maryland. So we do have a donation center for high-tech AT reuse, as well as our loan program, loaning out devices. And whoops, and I just screwed up my screen share. Okay. And for some reason, what did I do to myself? There we go. Okay. So I went over our two programs, and our last kind of third thing here is our financial loan program. Folks can apply to us to receive financial loans, and that can be for general AT, home modifications, or even adaptive driving vehicles. So come to us and learn more about AT devices. You can donate devices to us. You can also receive donated devices, depends on what we have available and all that good stuff. And then we have also financial loans as well through our program. So please reach out to us if we can help you with those core services. But I'm going to move forward so we can get through our main goal of today, and that is talking about the three S's for autism, and that is AT for sensory, social skills, and behavior supports. And of course, I am James Whitney. I am an occupational therapist. And I'm going to be leading this presentation today. So, we're talking about autism. We're talking about devices that can assist folks with autism. And that is a spectrum disorder. So, it is a wide range of what symptoms might look like and what devices might help those symptoms. So, it really is quite the spectrum on all fronts. But according to the CDC, it's a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. And that is just a very in a nutshell definition there. And furthermore, people with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, often have problems with social communication and interaction, and restricted or repetitive behaviors or interests. They also could be unusually sensitive to light, sound, or touch, yet may be indifferent to pain or temperature. That is per the Mayo Clinic, that statement there. Um, People with ASD may also have different ways of learning, moving, paying attention. So, um, people with ASD diagnoses may have some of these symptoms, may have none of them, may have all of them, may have different ones. This is just kind of a general, CDC thing here. So, in summary, based on those kind of definitions of what autism spectrum disorder might be, functional life skills that could be affected by ASD could be things like communication and social interaction, sensory processing, executive functioning, which is things like, planning, organizing, initiating a task, sequencing that task in appropriate steps, terminating that task when you're finished, self-regulating, all those good things can be executive functioning skills that may or may not be impacted by living with and having a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. So I'm going to kind of dive into a few of these bigger points and we'll break them down with assistive technology solutions that may help them out. And again, I'm keeping my eye on the chat and make sure everyone can see this. There is live captioning going as well. So there is captioning to view that you can hide if you would like to. So if we're talking about social interaction and communication, there's a few things that might help someone kind of with those realms. And that could look like if it's communication in a general sense, augmentative and alternative communication devices, otherwise known as AAC devices or SGDs, speech generating devices, depending on what you're reading and how they choose to acronym it. AAC is pretty common, but that is any speech generating device, whether it's an app on a tablet, whether it's a dedicated device, whether it is a lower tech kind of just picture template where you're pointing at things. All of these are kind of considered AAC devices, and I'll break down kind of what those look like. But also, furthermore, having visual schedules and boards and things like that can certainly help with social interaction of understanding schedule and routine, what's going to happen next, transitioning from activity to activity, having a more predictable day ahead of me. That could help with my social interactions and regulating my behaviors while I move throughout that day, having a visual understanding of kind of what's next and what I'm looking at. And also social stories and scripts. So stories that can mimic or portray patterns of behavior that might be ideal or that might, show this is an acceptable response to this type of situation, etc. So things like that could help. So if we're talking about AAC, and this could be its own like 5 hour webinar, probably more than that, right? So I'm not going to go like too crazy in depth with AAC just because there's so much to know about speech and language that it's impossible to cover in a fraction of a PowerPoint. But what I would basically say is that there's more three types of categories per se, and how I like to think of them is low tech or no tech. And that could be things like paper. So in this top right corner up here. This person's just pointing to a message. Whoops. They're pointing to these squares. They basically have what looks like a tablet device, but just printed out. So you can point to your messages in that way. And there are versions of this that are just the full alphabet. So I can point to my letters and I can spell words if I have an understanding of how to spell and how to, basically spell the words or organize sentence structure that way. Then I could certainly just choose each letter, or I could have a core word board where I have my core words. However, it works for each person. There's very low tech, no tech types of AAC, or there are things that are static displays. And a static display, also, I consider this kind of low tech, but it's certainly not as low as just paper. But that would be something like this Go Talk 9 right here. And this is a static display because all these messages that you see on, say, the screen, they have, apple juice, orange juice, looks like grape juice, etc., tomato juice. So this is being static, meaning that those messages aren't going to necessarily change when I press them. It's usually put in there that's a piece of paper or it's laminated. But when I press, say, apple juice and it says the word apple juice, well, that message isn't going to change. So that's considered static. It's a static display. Is that I have my messages and I can press my buttons to say them. They're not going to necessarily move around on me. Dynamic display could be something like this tablet at the bottom right here, where I can go back, I can go to my core words. I have quick fire words where I could have, if I'm going to, say, a sporting event, I could have some quick fire words organized for a baseball game that says, what inning is it? What's the score? That was a nice hit. Wow, I can't believe that guy caught that ball. Whatever I want to say. I could just organize those quick fire words. I could have some phrases pre-organized, and I can move throughout this tablet and categorize my words and my language in a more in-depth way. But with that being said, that's pretty advanced using of a speech device, understanding where do I put my words? Where is everything organized? So, oftentimes it's like start simple, add language, add complexity, and get to a place where ideally whoever's using that tablet is independent and they understand kind of where everything is. But this takes time. So I always tell folks to get a SLP on board and work with a professional who specializes in this area, and they can really help with just outlining, where to start with language, how to build on that language, and how to do it in a way that is systematic and doesn't overall deter the individual from using it. A lot of folks can just point to things and gesture, and mom or dad or the caregiver, they usually know what you're saying, but that doesn't always generalize to, strangers or other people that don't know me. So how do I speak to those people? And having a voice is always, 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 always very, very important to advocate for yourself, to show your personality, show when you're angry, show when you're upset. You don't always have to be happy. So having a device that can help convey those messages is always a good idea and is necessary in a lot of ways for safety and autonomy and quality of life. Here's another device here that I wanted to outline. This is the talking bricks. And this is a device that you buy these things in groups of three. Each one of these bricks can be loaded up with an individual message that I can have a phrase or a single word or maybe even directions to something on one of these talking bricks. It's modular, so I can snap these together. I can create my own physical speech board in front of me with different colors. I could put pictures on these buttons, etc. And you can just add them as you find more words you need to say. As the user gets more comfortable, you can add more of these quote unquote bricks. And continue growing language. I had a cool idea using these actually recently with somebody, is using these in a way for audio directional or prompting kind of usage. So if we're thinking like video modeling, where you watch a video of somebody doing a task and then you mimic that task, I played around with a family I was working with actually using these talking bricks and putting them in different places of the house that there might be a need for self-prompting. So if I'm in the bathroom and I need to brush my teeth, I could have one of these buttons next to my toothbrush. When I press it, It could say, grab the toothpaste and put a dollop on the toothbrush, something like that, that could act as a prompt. So it's not designed for that kind of use, but that's my OT brain kind of like, how else could these be applied to help someone out in their day-to-day life? So there's never always, well, I can't say always, but there's not usually just one way to use a device. You can always be creative. Duct tape and thinking outside the box and scissors and, Dyson mats, can always kind of help repurpose things for other usage. General AAC advice that I just kind of threw this together based on kind of how I kind of see it to be a good outline is, if you have a concern of, speech therapy or communication, and there might be a goal of seeing a therapist, talk to your primary care physician about, prescribing speech therapy. Just kind of like you would go and say, my back hurts, and they might say, hey, I'm prescribing physical therapy. You could get a prescription for speech therapy. Finding an SLP to do that evaluation would be a great, place to start. Working with them on, just where's my starting point and what would be a good first step? Is it using like a picture exchange communication tool like PEX, starting there and getting the idea of the physical handing out of messages and trying to convey speech that way of like handing someone a picture exchange. I'm handing them a picture that is conveying a message of what I'm trying to say, and then ideally getting a response back. Also using MD Tap, us, to trial devices to see about speech devices that exist. I would still say see a therapist, get them on board, but you can certainly work with us in the meantime while processes unfold and start trying devices out, whether it's high tech or low tech. We do have a lot of different speech devices here. Speak with your IEP members, if your son or daughter or someone that you work with has an IEP, great. And introduce, the idea of AT devices that would be needed for that student to function in school and a least restrictive environment, but having access to accommodations that'll help them succeed. Like the school is responsible for, acquiring and supplying those devices that are outlined in the IEP. So it's good to get this, any AT needed part of the IEP in writing, and then the school is actually responsible for helping you get those things while you're at that school. And each school will keep those devices as students transition. So as you graduate or transition to another school or higher education or the workforce, the schools will keep those devices. So you will need to make a plan for how to get your own. So let's move forward away from speech devices because that is a very, very in-depth topic there. But we have also, moving forward, we're still talking about social interactions. We're talking about communication. And I mentioned earlier, having things like visual schedules and boards can be a really, really great way to help increase predictability, improve communication on understanding. I started with task A, next is task B. I have a better idea of how my day's moving, and I can regulate my behaviors, my engagement might increase. I might not have to rely so much on people to prompt me or to, move me along. It could just help the whole process of a day. And things to consider, is like choosing an appropriate visual board, appropriate visuals for that board. You know, um, how old is your son or daughter, and kind of like where are they at with um, just wanting like cartoons, wanting real life images, like what sticks to them more, what's more concrete to them, and just use those visuals. So it really just depends on each person. Start simple, have a simple board with like, morning routine, afternoon routine, and dinner routine, whatever it might be. Start simple, add more and more things as you have more practice with them, creating prompts, reinforce, review the day, go through the boards, and generalize those skills. If we do playtime and clean up at home, well, maybe we can generalize that to playtime and clean up at recess, or maybe at another after school program. So then it's not just learning the skills and understanding how my day goes, but oh, okay, cleanup happens here. It also happens here. So cleaning up might be a part of my day when I'm playing. So it could be things like that. And obviously, it's not always so cut and dry. Um, but examples of a visual schedule and things like this can be considered really low tech assistive technology, right? is having like little magnetic strips on the wall, and you have a to-do list and you have a finish list, and you can just slide them over. And that's a visual representation of me completing this task. Now it's done. And I can see what else I have to do that day. So it could look like this. It could be a big whiteboard, it could be Velcro on different stickers. It could be an app on your phone or tablet, which we do have some of those to show you today too. It could be this device called the Relish. And this is a scheduler attached to an alarm clock. So as the time of the alarm clock moves throughout the day, it'll actually ring when it hits whatever times that you set it for. So we have an 8 and 8:15 here and 8:30 and 9. So it'll ring for each one of those, and it'll give me a chance to hear that and say, oh, okay, what time is it for? Okay, time for medication, whatever it might be. I can click. It's a physical button. It has a tactile press in. I can press this button in, and I can check these marks for, okay, I completed that. And if I don't press the check mark, it'll be like red or orange. So that'll be like I did not complete that. Um, if you go to this website, it'll actually say it's for dementia and memory care related needs. That was how they created this device. But when I look at it, I just see a scheduling device, and I can write down my schedule on this. So don't be deterred if you click on this website and it says it's for dementia. That was just what was in mind when they created it. But having a schedule with this is a written schedule. I could also put, images on this. I could put stickies on this, little stickers. I could print out my own clip art, whatever I want to do, and I can glue those on here. So it doesn't have to necessarily be handwriting. It could be, modified. Um, and when we're talking about visual schedules and different apps or different ways to kind of portray, what's next, what's next. Well, transitioning through those activities can also be part of the place where, emotional regulation can get trickier. Is having to transition from one activity to the next. So, having cues and visual cues can be a great way to help. Verbal cues are common, like, hey, time for a bath now. Hey, playtime's over. Time to clean up. But sometimes, that's it's not always the most effective way to signal a transition, especially with someone with ASD. So saying, hey, you have 15 minutes left of playtime with a time timer over here. And that's a visual pie chart that goes down as the time runs out. So then now this, person who's playing or working on anything can now see, okay, when it's at 7.5 minutes, I am halfway done my time, and I can kind of keep an eye on that. So it makes it a little bit more obvious to see how much time I have. Or other visual countdown timers where you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then every once in a while the person comes over and they take the 5 off, and that means okay, I am getting closer to cleanup time. Okay, the 4 is now gone, and then the 3, then the 2, and then once the one's done, excuse me, time for cleanup. So that's a visual representation of each time I move one of those off, we're getting closer to cleanup time. There's other alerting apps, even Google Calendar. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go about creating a schedule with alerts and alarms attached to it. And I'll get through a couple other devices that can help with that as well. And I liked this. This was research indicated from the 2000s, so it's a little bit dated now, but it indicated that using visual cues during transition can help decrease challenging behavior and increase following transition demands. Um, so they used a study with a young boy with autism during transitions, one classroom activity to another, from the playground to inside the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. At transition times, the staff presents the student with a photo of the location he would be going. And that helped to decrease challenging behaviors. Excuse me. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about social stories, and this can help with social interaction with autism spectrum disorder. In a social story, it's a narrative, usually a short, simple narrative used to portray or just help show, acceptable behavior in certain situations, understanding social cues, understanding appropriate behavior patterns, and all those kinds of things. This was developed by Carol Gray, and it's a personalized approach using illustrations to help make complex social concepts easier to grasp. So there is, let me see here. Um, if we click Actually, not that. There are free social stories online. This does not want to help me click on this here. And I like this one. And I am sharing my whole screen, right? If anyone can't see this, let me know. I should be. I am screen sharing. Actually, I'm just gonna make sure I am. So let me just double check. Yeah, whole screen. All right. Perfect. I just want to check that. So here's a social story, and this is by this is Jewish Families and Children, JCFS. I have to remember what the S stands for, but this has multiple chapters around just like around the nation here. I think this was from Chicago. But asking someone to play a social story. My name is blank, and I love playing with other kids. At recess and in my class, there are lots of kids I can play with. When I want to play with someone first, I need to do these things. I look at the person's face. Next, I say their name. I wait till that person looks back at me. Then I say, "Can I play with you? Will you play with me?" On and on and on. And that is a very quick social story of asking someone to play. Um, and that can be an easy way to help get the point across of, okay, I say their name. I wait for them to look at me. I don't just keep yelling at them. And there are some like free social stories online. Here is some printable social stories. I think they're down here. Yeah. Um, so this is choosing what to wear, trying new foods. My school is closed, hand washing, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a bunch of free stories on here. I wanted to share that with anybody who was curious. I did add a few different links to a bunch of different free buzzword free social stories that can help with maybe helping convey some different social behaviors and situations. And also, I did want to share that there's this really cool, if you click on this link here, the AI social stories generator, it'll take you to this website where I can basically give it a prompt, has difficulty at recess, and it'll actually create a whole social story for you. It says, "Hey there, let's chat about recess." This is AI. So this is a social story, navigating recess like a pro. Before recess, remember, take a deep breath. Plan ahead, find a buddy, practice, start small, observe, communicate. It's okay to say no. And I could do this for anything, difficulty keeping hands to yourself. Um, and I can submit that text and it will help give me a prompt. It'll take a few seconds. But there are these AI social stories that can help somebody or, just help kind of run through something together. Or if you were trying to create a very specific social story, well, then I could put this into the prompt. I can get a nice social story outline and I can put some pictures to it and I can write one myself. So social story, keeping your hands to yourself. Why is it important? What does it look like? Our hands stay in our own space. We ask before we hug or touch someone. So anyway, I just wanted to show that. I thought that was pretty cool. A cool use of AI to help generate social stories for folks who might benefit from those. And I did want to show this really quick here. Board Maker. This is Board Maker
with
7.
a
And Board Maker is another software that can help with a number of things. And this is by a speech
bank of over 50,000
Toby Dynavox. And this is just a little video outlining it. So I can create social stories, time to make tea. And it has all these different
symbols.
pictures in
You can
here,
make print or interactive resources in minutes.
print or interactive.
Creating from
I can
scratch,
create these from
using
scratch.
templates,
They have lots of different templates. I can make my
editing
own social stories right in their software here. I can also create other webs and graphic organizers, and different feelings or whatever it is I might be. Um, and just to show, this can help support
whether it's starting with a text
communication.
system,
So,
using a symbol on a single message device, providing a choice board,
I mean,
or developing a communication book. With a wide range of
so it can help
PCS,
support
you can support
behavior,
behavior who might
communication,
need help. Whether it's starting a conversation, follow rewards when they are followed.
and like behavior, so steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this can help me with my, I will do these things. I will not shout. I will not hit. I will keep my hands to myself. I'm working towards a treat so I can have my reward system, so all these things are built into BoardMaker, and you can create your own
participants in the
versions of
world
any of
around
these
them
things
by means of a recipe.
or supporting participation, so graphic organizers or different ways to break down information. And this can be app-based, part of your speech device, or just downloaded online.
Creating
But
symbol
anyway,
supported resources in
um,
BoardMaker 7.
that is BoardMaker, and I want to show really quick another device here. I know I'm going quick today, but we have lots to talk about. Um, and this is the device Goalie here, Goally, Goalie. I did reach out to them recently, just to follow up with them. We had an old device that of theirs. I was like, "You guys are still operating, right?" And they were like, "Yep, of course. They have made lots of updates." So with Goalie, this is a tablet-based device, and like if you bought Goalie, you would buy a tablet for your child. And then you would use the parent app. And the parent app means I can add things to my child's tablet to work on. Or I can see what they've been doing and I can adjust their settings and add and subtract things. But essentially, within Goalie, there's a few different things that they offer within here. Goal mine apps. So instead of coal mine, they have the goal mine. And this could be like working towards a goal, how to tie your shoes, how to get ready for school. There's interactive learning, video classes, new lessons. So if you couldn't guess, this is a subscription model here, but it seems to be like a really helpful, neat device. I would love to see their updated versions because our old device seems like it's a little bit dated. They also have Copilot. This is like within Goalie, and Copilot is basically video modeling. So you have a timer running,
Goalie's daily skills system has
um,
all the tools to show you an example.
and it can
A
help
blue ball will
you
help your kids follow along, like a social
following
story.
along, like a social story meets video modeling. Kind of all these different things can kind of be used within this. So how to dry your clothes, folding my pants, folding a shirt. I can click on any one of these and I can get to my own social story type of interactive thing, or even this like video modeling type
Each
thing
step gets
here.
a visual aid and a timer to keep them on track.
So the timer keeps you on track and it can help you figure out
The visual aids
what
can
to
be
do
photos
next.
or videos.
There could even be a video.
When kids finish their work, they win.
And so either way, like not to spin our wheels on this too much, but it seems like, it could be helpful to keep some folks on track and doing certain tasks, even with timers, reward systems, etc. And the parents can keep their eye on that. Um, so those are a few things to help with communication, social stories, social interaction. There's some softwares, there's some hardwares here. There's even some AI generating stuff here. So I tried to paint the picture with a few different technologies, a few different complexities of technology, from pieces of paper to AI. So let's keep moving forward here just to stay on track. So next, learning, behavior regulation, executive functioning skills. Let's talk about some of these. Um, and also, oftentimes, I think behavioral regulation could also, all this stuff's kind of lumped together, I think, sometimes. Because if you're not communicating properly or you're not interacting in a social setting to an agreeable standpoint for anyone, whether it's the teacher or yourself or someone else, this can all cause frustrating behavior. It can cause outbursts. So, it's often a little bit of everything, right? Trying to have a good day. It's not just one thing. It's communicating, it's learning, it's predicting what I'm doing next with my time that day. Understanding these tasks. So I've talked about video modeling a little bit so far. And we probably have an understanding now, but it's basically watching a video of a model or someone else doing something and then me trying to do that thing. So there's basic video modeling um is like a parent or someone else, some other model that we say quote unquote model, just whoever's in the video doing that thing, but would perform the task and they are recorded. So then the user can watch a video of their mom or dad or someone else doing a task, whether it's loading the dishwasher or putting my socks in the drawer, or self-modeling. I could film my child or the user. I could film them doing the task that they need to do later so that they can see themselves doing it in that video. Or there's POV, point of view video, where I kind of have the camera like where my eyes would be and filming it, like me pulling the drawer out and putting the socks in the drawer. So it looks like how, like where my eyes would be if I was actually doing it. So it can kind of help put the user in a perspective that might be more easily to repeat because it makes more sense where it's where their eyes are. It just depends. Or video prompting, where after each task it'll stop. Like put, open the dishwasher, stop. Okay, then what? Well, I should probably put the cup into the top drawer, but how do I get to that point? So it'll prompt you to each step kind of along the way. And I have some creative ideas on how to do video modeling. If anyone was curious about this, here's just like, and I'm sure other users have done this kind of thing, but this was a creative idea that I kind of thought about with the use of QR codes. And that if anyone who, I'm sure we're all familiar with QR codes now with COVID and going to restaurants and everyone had you scan a QR code. But if someone scans this QR code here, and you guys can try to do this really quick, and I'm gonna do this right now, actually. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna turn this on really quick. So if I go to that, so now I can click on that YouTube video that I just scanned, and it takes you to the MD Tap overview commercial, just from me scanning that QR code. Um, so I'm gonna get back to my slide deck here. So I scan this QR code and I click on the link and it takes me directly to a video. So what could be done is that you could create your own YouTube page or store your videos somewhere online. And if you do create a YouTube page, you don't have to make these things public. You can make them private. Um, so it doesn't have to be shared or anything. And I could upload my own videos, like, I was like loading the dishwasher, putting my clothes away. I could put these QR codes around the house. I could laminate them, tape them up in different rooms. And as long as the user has an understanding of how to use their smartphone or tablet in that sense, you could just scan those QR codes, take yourself to your own video model, maybe that you took yourself, and have a self-prompting way to kind of get your own video modeling right there. So it could be through QR codes. Actually, another thing that I kind of concocted recently is using your like notes app. So what I've done here is this is like picture modeling really, but I created this myself the other day just to kind of show how to use a button hook. Well, how to use a button hook. So step one, I might put the button hook, or this is what I would do. Put the button hook through the slot of your pants first. Step two, you want to grab that button with the button hook through the slot. And then what's step three? Well, you pull that button back through the slot that you started in. Pretty simple video there, but I created my own little picture modeling on my notes app by just taking my own pictures and doing step one, step two, step three. Um, so oftentimes we do have access to technology like just within our phones and other systems that you could get creative with, and you could make your own little video modeling examples and things like that. Um, just wanted to share that with folks, just as some ideas I've been bouncing around in my own head. Obviously, it's going to be probably a level of assistance that's needed for these things to go smoothly at first. So that might be a structured approach or scaffolding approach where you start with more scaffolding, and then eventually, the goal is for them to be kind of on their own. Um, and so, really quick, this is kind of confusing, but if I can just right here is this is an equation if you want to make your own QR codes. And I'm not going to spend much time on this. But with me sharing my screen, let me get to, so I have that equation typed in here, right? So all you have to worry about if you want to use this equation is that you just copy and paste this equation in my chart. Whoops, right here. So if you copy and paste this equation, it'll work for you and create your own QR codes. Um, all you have to double check is this number right here where it says A1. That might not say A1 for you if you're in Google Slides. This is specifically for Google Slides. Instead of A1, I would make mine say A56 because that is the actual column I'm looking for. But essentially what I can do now is now that I have this equation, I can just take, any URL that I want. I just paste that URL in here and it just create a QR code for me. And then I can now copy this QR code and I can paste it somewhere. I'm not going to leave it there because I don't need it there. But anyway, if anybody's curious of making your own QR codes, if you were trying to do something like that, just give me a heads up. But this is the equation to use in Google Sheets specifically to make QR codes really easily. All right, I'm going to keep going on here. I showed my examples of video modeling and all that good stuff. Here's another device that I use for behavioral regulation, or I'm putting in this kind of thing because this is called the Watchminder. And basically, what you can do is set up to 30 different alarms, each with individual messages that are tied to each alarm. So this is one that says, "Pay attention." I could make this go off every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, and it'll just vibrate. It's not going to beep. It's not going to, or I guess it might have beeping kind of settings. I won't speak to that. But I can set just vibrational things. So if you have a tendency to drift off and to get distracted, well, a little vibration on my wrist, I can, oh, it says pay attention. It's like self-prompting, and it doesn't always have to be pay attention. It could be like go to the bathroom. I can set that for every hour on the hour. A little like vibrating reminder goes off. It says go to the bathroom. Um, so that could be a good thing to have based on if you need reminders to do certain things throughout the day. If the individual is not likely to do certain things just unprompted, well, having a prompting device might help, and a vibrational prompting device could be an answer. Maybe, maybe not. Here's another app here that I really like to show. This is Reminders. If you look this up on the App Store, it's called Reminder, Reminders with Voice. So it's kind of an awkward long name, but it's a reminders app. And I like this a lot because I can set all my alarms however I want to set them. So, for instance, in this picture, we have a wake up alarm, take medication, call Jennifer, feed the dog. Whatever your day looks like, it'll outline it in this check box. So I can actually use this as a way to check off I've done my things or did I miss one? And I can actually set my own alarms for each of these things. And this is an app on your phone or tablet. But I can change the alarm sound. So, for instance, and I know I am jumping around a lot today. So I have this app on my phone. So like, let me pull the app open. So I set an alarm earlier. I was playing around with this thing. So I can check that off that I did it or no, X. I know this is probably hard to see here, so I'm going to try not to move too much. But if I go to add an alarm, I can do a one-time alarm, daily alarm, weekly, monthly, yearly, wake up alarms, or even you can do custom cycles, like 21 days on, 7 days off, um, whatever it might be. But if I'm creating an alarm, I can go to the sound and then I can make it say my voice. Testing, one, two, three, testing. And then when this alarm went off, in theory, one, two, three, testing. So I could use that as my audio for this alarm. I can change the picture. So I could use a picture of like my face. So here's a picture of me with some thumbs up. So I just create a new alarm. When it goes off, if it was brush your teeth in the morning, it could be mom's voice saying, "Hey, time to brush your teeth." Instead of just like a beeping sound, if that makes sense. So you can actually use your own recorded audio within this thing that might give an extra prompt on what should I do next? Oh, time to take my medication, or and it could be in whoever's voice makes sense. So we are getting towards the end of our brief hour here. So like, let's talk about sensory and behavioral regulation continued on because I feel like all these things kind of work together with behavioral regulation. So we'll skip through the explanations as we probably all understand that there can be difficulty in expressing, feelings, emotional responses, managing one's emotions, modulation. Yep. And according to Autism Speaks, I pulled this right off their website. a good thing to do is help identify emotions and feelings. So putting pictures or symbols to the feelings. So trying to identify them together, even about this is a happy face, this is a sad face. And again, maybe using social stories to describe, I'm feeling green right now could be a way of saying I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling really, I'm open to activity and interaction, or I'm feeling red today. So you could use different words or colors to describe how one are feeling to help them have more language to describe these things. And teaching coping skills, all these things can help. With count to 100, walk away, talk to someone else about your problem, squeeze a ball, get that anger out. So dealing with emotions is a lot more than just identifying them. Children with autism need to be provided with a variety of coping skills and a safe space to deal with emotions when they feel overwhelmed. Start by identifying things that seem to calm your child down. These could be a tight hug, playing with their favorite toy, or going for a walk. Coping mechanisms vary widely, and it's important to make a list of things that seem to help your child calm down. Once you have this list, create a visual representation of each thing on the list, print it out. Check out this example on the right. So I like that. I just took that whole quote I stole off Autism Speaks because I thought it did a really good job explaining things. Um, so, self-soothing behaviors. So, we have a couple types of sensory behaviors, and that could be sensory seeking or sensory avoiding. So, if you're seeking sensory input, that could be things like, seeking some smells, touches, different lights. Sensory avoiding could be, avoiding all those same things, like wanting like noise canceling headphones on or a calm space. So like sensory seeking, let's break these down real quick. This could seem like calming music, a fidget spinner or something to use with your fingers or different, a fidget backpack. There are different like fidgeting devices that exist. It's kind of like a whole space now. A sensory room with things to explore with physical touch, soft lights, soothing auditory stimulation could be a great place. Even if someone's sensory seeking, they still might be sensory seeking to calm down. So it's not always a means of ramping up behavior and energy. Just because I'm seeking sensory input, it could still be me. I'm overstimulated and I'm seeking some sensory stuff to calm down. Or sensory avoidant could be I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm seeking less sensory input to calm down. So that's like a calm environment, reducing noise, clutter, and like reducing bright lights, softly dim lights, managing noise and sounds, noise canceling headphones, all these things, respecting sensory limits, allowing these individuals to opt out of activities or environments that they cause distress in that moment, or providing visual schedules or social stories to help prepare for transitions in routine, like we mentioned. Gradual exposure to new sensory experience, allowing them to get accustomed at their own pace. So not just throwing them into an activity that's very sensory, has a lot of sensory input, but giving them a chance to maybe do each thing separately and then putting them all together. So what do the sounds sound like? Okay. And then what does this stuff feel like? Like is it a bucket of like that fake slime? Well, what does that fake slime feel like? So maybe we can have some practice with these things before we're in a group setting. So it could be things like that. In AT, that could assist with sensory regulation, thinking like a weighted vest or a weighted blanket, deep pressure, that can help regulate the nervous system. And there's actual science backing that can actually calm a lot of us down. If we're feeling heightened or overstimulated, noise canceling headphones that we kind of mentioned already that can take out distracting sounds or just give you a quiet space, even if you're not in a quiet space. Visual aids. So sensory regulation, and again, I feel like a lot of this can tie together with feeling overwhelmed is having that visual aid again. Whether it's communication with, an actual communication device with visual pictures or a visual schedule or just things to help with my routine that can help me maybe not get to that point of overstimulation and to help regulate my emotions in those moments, maybe a little bit more predictable. Tactile stimulation, so soft and squishy and fidgety and all different kinds of toys are soft, like a soft blanket or a weighted blanket. All these things can be tactile stimulation. and that can help with sensory processing or auditory stimulation. So having, cool, calming visual lights and fiber optic lights or a fish bubble tube, all these things can be visual. I guess I'm kind of mixing up visual, but auditory too. Like the bubble tube makes some noise, calming sounds and calming music or no music. And there are some apps that can be used as well to track mood. How are you feeling today? What's your level of happiness? All that good stuff, and tracking that over time. Here's some sensory ideas and things like that. Fiber optic cables. These are these bubble tubes that can be really cool to look at. And like this kiddo here is playing in a mirror, so they're seeing themselves play with this bubble tube. This is a light board, so there's actually lights that shoot up through this board, creating kind of a cool feeling and effect with playing on top of a light board. So, and aromatherapy can also be used as well to smell certain calming aromas and things like that. Um, Also things to consider, grading these activities, grading playtime, to help someone, find success. So that's a term I remember learning in OT school, was grading a task up is making it more difficult, like you're going up an incline. Grading a task down is making it easier, like you're going downhill. And trying to find that sweet spot with any activity is the name of the game. So if it's too easy, it could be boring. It's like you're just finding too much success too quickly. I'm done with that game in 5 minutes. If it's too hard, same thing. I'm not finding any success. This is just too difficult. I'm done. So finding that sweet spot where it's kind of difficult, but you are finding success, like maybe you're winning some levels, maybe, oh, it's getting harder and harder now. Whatever it might look like is just making it, tailoring an activity to a point of success, but maybe still a little bit of having to work through that. That's kind of the goal, especially in clinical therapy. A physical therapist or an occupational therapist, well, if I'm giving you things to work on and you're just nailing them, well, that means it's not hard enough for you. And if I'm giving you things to work on and you're not able to do any of them, well, I can't track your progress very well because there's nothing to track. You're not doing these things because you can't, or it's not at a level that you're able to achieve those goals. So finding that sweet spot where you failed a couple times, oh, found success on the third time. Now we have a good starting point. And also, also the visual supports of how that game is being played, adding switches to the toys, clear instructions, positive reinforcement. And there are some things like sensory games. There's touch and match boards, and we do have a lot of these things I've talked about today. We have versions of them here. So, which I'll get into a little bit of that right at the end, which we're pretty much there. But we do have some I'm sorry, tactile touch and match. So all these circles have different textures within them, and you touch the textures and match them up according to the board. And they should all have the same colors and feels. So it could be great for blind, low vision folks, could be great for sighted individuals just looking for texture and tactile matching. It could grade this activity up and make it harder by having a sighted individual. You could have them close their eyes or anything like that, and could add a level of difficulty by not seeing the colors. Now you're just relying on touch. Or the shake, listen, and match game. This is an auditory matching. So instead of tactile matching, now I'm shaking these things and I'm trying to match them for sound. Two bells will sound the same. So you try to find the bells that sound alike. Um, Also, I just wanted to add a couple things at the end here. There is AMC has sensory friendly films. I'm going to click on this website really quick. So, what I could do is I have, because I live up near like White Marsh area, so I have that AMC checked off. So what I can do is find sensory friendly films showing, like a Lilo and Stitch, so I can click on this. This is a sensory friendly screening. And that means they have like the lights aren't quite so low. They leave the lights on. And it's not as loud. So they might have like softer sounds. It might just be a little bit less loud. So they actually do offer sensory friendly screenings, through AMC, which I thought was really cool and a good thing to know about. So there is a link to that within this, PowerPoint here. And some other devices that can be switch accessible could be like the alternate spinner. So this is a dice rolling device where I can hook up a switch to this. I can plug in a little accessibility switch and I can just press one button and I can roll the dice. figuratively speaking, on this spinner instead of having to actually physically roll dice. Or even things like a pitching machine. This is kind of off the wall ideas for just different ways to interact with devices that I can hook up with a switch. And a switch is really an accessibility switch is a button or an external button or device I can plug a button into, and I can use this switch to power that button. So we do have switch accessible toys here. We have the all spin it dice spinner. We have a couple stuffed animals that are Switch accessible, and we do have these adaptive gaming controllers here. And I show these because we're talking about grading activities. So maybe having a more simple way to interact with a device could increase success with that activity or task, increasing, feelings of happiness and achievement because you're able to participate in a task or game maybe a little more successfully than otherwise. So this is just a form of being able to kind of grade these activities is, well, a standard Xbox controller, it looks a lot like this guy right here in the bottom left image. So that has two joysticks, one on the left, one on the bottom right. So you have two different joysticks that you use one on each thumb. Okay, well, you have four more buttons right here. You have a couple triggers at the tops, and you have a whole D-pad right here, up, down, left, right, diagonals. This is a lot of buttons that you just have to use with all of your fingers, two hands. So this is a standard controller. This is what that Xbox just sells to anyone who buys an Xbox. But a lot of users probably there's probably too much going on there, and it also assumes a lot about fine motor control and dexterity. So now we have these adaptive controllers, top right image, that basically all these buttons and joysticks are organized by having switch ports in the back. So now what I can do, bottom right image, I can plug in these other external buttons. I can plug these into my adaptive controller, and basically I can recreate my own controller in front of me with less buttons. So if I'm playing a game that I only need two or three buttons for, well, I can have those two or three buttons in front of me, and that's it. I don't have to have all the other 20 buttons. I can just have the three I need, and that maybe it's left, right, and forward. I'm playing like Mario Kart. Well, it's most important that I steer and that I accelerate. After that, like throwing a shell or something at my nearby opponents. So, it could be like two, three, four buttons, whatever the like level of achievement or excuse me, whatever the level of um, competence and overall understanding of the game is. So I know that was a lot, and I was trying to give a good overview of different methods, different high and low tech devices, even things that you already own, like your notepad and AI that's online. So I tried to outline a couple different methods, a couple different things here to keep it a little bit fresh and a little bit different. I would open it up for questions. I know I bumped us up pretty much to two today. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. And if there's not any questions, I will post this on our YouTube page and I can send the slide deck out to actually I'll just send it out to everybody. So if anyone registered, I have your email. I'll send you the slide deck just to have as a reference to kind of peek at these things. Um, and if there is any questions, please fire them in the chat. And I'm happy to answer. And I do see, is there an AI to help make social stories for Pictello? That's a good question. I cannot answer that question because I don't know the answer. But I will check into that. I'm just not sure. But I can certainly look into that. And is there any other questions or comments at all? How do you borrow the AT devices for training? That is a great question there. And if you're using our program, basically what you need to do is reach out to us, and that could be emailing or calling me directly. I'll type my email in the chat here, and I'll read it out loud in case anyone's using a screen reader or um, just needs it read out loud. Excuse me. It is JAM as in Mary, ES period WHITN as in Nancy, EY number one at james.maryland.gov, G-O-V. So it's james.whitney1 at maryland.gov. And my direct office line is 410-554-9276. You can call or email me directly, and basically what happens is if you know what you want to borrow and you know we have it, and you're like, hey, I want to borrow the Go Talk 9, I can get that ready for you, and I can basically have it ready for pickup at our office. And we can actually also ship devices to our clients in Maryland who maybe aren't right by Baltimore. It's not the biggest state in the nation, but still takes a while to drive across Maryland, right? So what we can do is ship devices to folks who can't necessarily get to Baltimore, which is fair. So what we can do is have it ready for pickup. We could ship it to you, or we could do a consultation in person, and we could kind of like talk through everything together. I can help guide you on where to start. It's like, let's start with this, let's try this, and we can get you out of here same day with something. So basically, you just have to sign it out, and we do have a loan form agreement document where you would have to sign for it, stating like, yes, I am borrowing this device. I'm going to bring it back in 30 days, and I won't sell it to anyone else while I have it. All that kind of good liability stuff. But once you sign that document and you meet with me or talk to me, we can get you set up for borrowing a device, and we'll help get you up and running with it, either in person, or we can do a virtual follow-up meeting and we can hop on a call together. Um, and oh, it looks like I didn't send those things because it didn't send it to everyone. It sent it to just the panelist. Here we go. So there is the actual information for my email, and my phone number. And our website does have an online survey response. So that is M as in Mary, MDTAP.org, MDTAF.org, O-R-G. That is our website. There is a survey response type of thing on there where you can actually just like say name, number, email, and the nature of your request. You can submit that to me, or to us, and someone will reach out to you. So that's another way to get started with us. I hope that answers your question. So like what we don't need is like we don't need doctor's notes. We don't really need that kind of documentation. We're pretty easy to get started with. And we are totally free. So it doesn't cost any money working with us, borrowing devices. We are funded so that we are at no cost to our clients in Maryland. Um, Great questions. Any other last questions? I know we are past 2 p.m., so I will leave it up for another minute or so. Um, and I appreciate that. I'm so glad you found it helpful. I would say follow up with me if you have any questions or if you want to borrow anything. I'm happy to be a resource for anyone. I'm going to stop recording.